city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and I was just muted, and this is the Eve Universe Show! Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is December 1st, YC125. This is the Eve Universe Show. Welcome, settle on in. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or some tea in a lovely mug, like this Convocation of Empyreans mug. So good. It makes the coffee taste better, actually, to have your own Alliance logo on it. It's one of those things. Any rate, make sure to like the stream if you haven't already. We have a lot of stuff to cover. Yeah, it was a lot of that. Yes, Felipe. Greetings, fellow Empyreans. This is smack. All right. Yeah, Danny, I try. I do my best. Yes, you have not missed anything yet, Dutch Gunner. Today is going to be an information-dense packed day, though. So one of the things I want to do is cover how to get into faction warfare and insurgencies. I made a faction warfare mega guide over almost a year ago or so when Uprising came out, to help people kind of know everything that was going on with Uprising and how faction warfare works. The problem with that is, like, I've gotten a lot of negative feedback on that video, and rightfully so, because it is, like, it's a mega guide, right? And so it by its very nature is a big, long video. And of course, I make a lot of long videos, but in that kind of thing where somebody's wanting to come in and get, like, I don't need to hear all the stuff. I just want to know what I need to know to get involved. And that's fair criticism, right? So I wanted to make an entry version of this stuff, of that content. And now that insurgencies have come out, I think that now is the perfect time to do that. And so I've set up, I wrote out a whole outline, so we're going to be able to go through it, hopefully fairly structured. Presumably. Yes. And then of course we'll edit it down, add in visuals and stuff like that, and make the real guide. So going to tell us how to get officer mods for all your perfect algos fits. Look, man, all you have to do is rat enough, like go do, you know, the road drone sites that everybody else doesn't do? Just go do those. And occasionally you get the sentient drones, and you can get the if you do the nullsec, you can get the officer road drone damage control, or whatever. God. Oh, no, I'm not, I do not, I have carried an officer mod in a ship once. I mean, like more than once, actually, because like every time they dropped in, we would get Zoria's guns and radiation sinks in the invasions. And so there was one time that I had a Zoria's medium entropic radiation disintegrator, and it was like 8 billion ISK, and I had to take it like 10 jumps to deliver it somewhere, and I was just like, I don't know how anybody ever fits a fucking officer mod in their ship. Like, I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. Yeah, I know, Marcus. It is true that, yeah, it is very simple. If you want any officer mod, you just go and warp between the belts in whatever space whose officer you want to trigger, and there's a very rare chance that basically, okay, the real simple thing is, and this is totally off topic, but the way that belt routing actually works is that anytime that you warp to a belt, if there isn't any rats there, it basically checks to see if it should spawn rats, right? So that's why you warp from belt to belt to belt to belt and kill any of the rats that you see. Because if there's rats there, then that takes up that spawn point. And so you kill all of them so that way it can respawn. You could technically go to a system with like 2 belts and just like bounce between them or bounce between, you know, like whatever. But the ones with more belts is kind of just more interesting and easier. But the point is that every single time it spawns, it has a chance of getting a rare spawn. If you do that in low sec, that rare spawn will be a Mordu's rat. And if you do it in null sec, that rare spawn could be up to an officer spawn of that type. You should tell people. I don't know actually enough about that. That was just the very basics about it. This is not the belt ratting guide. Yeah, well, I'm going to hopefully talk about some tactics today. And I've been wanting to stream when the insurgency is like at its most active, so that way I could stream it. But you need to do it in 7 or below. Well, yeah, like in their home constellations or home regions, it's easier to get that officer. This is actually why. Okay, yeah, I think it's only the home regions, or at least it's very rarely outside of that. So this was actually one of the reasons that this is the funniest story to me that came out of Blackout. Okay, the most impactful change that happened during the Age of Chaos, right? Because like Blackout heralded the beginning of what was then known as the Chaos Era, I think it was what it was called. Either way, they tried to do like every 2 weeks they were coming out with different crazy stuff and changing things up and making things happen. What was that? Wait. Hey, thanks for that. Awesome. 07 to that new patron. Anywho, where was I? Oh yeah. So of all of those changes, the most impactful change to happen during scarcity was a complete accident. And it was so impactful that they eventually had to revert it because everybody hated it. So basically what happened was, as part of their rebalance, they moved the location of the different rocks, right? So that way only certain minerals, and also they changed what rocks had what minerals, right? This was when they made it so that low sec was the only source of isogen and noxium. You know, high sec was the major source of tritanium and stuff like that. Before, in null sec, you could get everything just fine. And now, like, you'd have to go to the different bands of space to get all the different things, or trade or whatever. So as part of that, they removed a whole bunch of rocks in belts that were ineligible to be in those areas now. Like, if there was a giant field of dark ochre, which is a low sec ore, in null sec, they just removed all of those rocks, right? And so what this ended up with was vast swaths of nullsec where there were belts in which 0 eligible rocks were available. I need to make this bigger so I can see what these notifications are. I didn't catch that one. What was that? Oh, subscribing. Oh, also 07. So yeah, if you want officer faction spawns, you just kill everything. If you kill the rats, if the spawns suck, if it's a good spawn, you kill the high value and keep the low value. That way the spawn respawns the high value after a while. That's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, the ore and the belts are tied to the system security class. Either way. So 07. Oh, hey! Wait, you're the guy that... Okay. Well, we'll talk more about that. Hit me up on Discord and we'll talk about it more openly in a few days. Anywho, So the point is that there were these belts that didn't have any eligible ore, and so the players thought that respawning just wasn't working, or more importantly, there was an increasing belief that like the NPC miners were mining up all the ore in the morning. That was particularly common in LowSec. But what it was just there was literally, it was never going to have any ore in those belts. So about a year later, one of the programmers who, you know, was really, really active and did a lot of really good stuff. The guy who actually made the needlejack filaments, for example, he decided to clean up the problem by removing all of the belts. I don't actually, you know what? I don't even know if it was him that did it, but they, you know, CCP decided to remove all of the belts that didn't have any eligible ore anymore, just to clear up any confusion. The problem with that is that it left entire swaths, entire regions of nullsec with 0 asteroid belts, including the home region of the Angel Cartel. Curse, I think, right? Yeah. So it basically became effectively, practically impossible to farm the Angel Cartel rats, officer spawn. It could technically still spawn, but it's already such a rare thing. If nobody's farming it, it just won't. Like it's something you'll hear about once a year or whatever. So then CCP fixed that by making the mining rats, the rats that spawn in the asteroids. Why not just put asteroids in the belts instead? Because they were doing scarcity. They didn't want rocks in the belts. So then they make it so that the belt rats can now spawn on gates. And so then suddenly gates in nullsec were being gate camped by pirate spawns of like, because one of the other things that can spawn more commonly than officers is dreadnoughts and titans. So now you have like it doesn't matter if it was sov space, NPC space, does not matter. Just all of a sudden there'll be a titan gate camping a gate. And, you know, I argued at the time that it's like, well, you know, space is dangerous. The pirates are also there. Of course, they're going to gate camp every once in a while. But the problem is that the owners of the system didn't like it because it was like a pain in the butt. And people that were yeeting into nullsec and tackle frigs, people that were jumping into nullsec or going into nullsec to raid nullsec hated it. Anybody who was roaming hated it. Anybody who was defending hated it. So even though it was hilarious, and like I said, I honestly believe one of the most impactful changes that came out of scarcity, it was a series of innocent but misguided decisions, a cascade of minor implementation mistakes that led to it. Classic humans, they love gate camping until the NPCs do it. Well, like their unironic argument is that they want, if they're going to be impacted by something, they want that thing impacting them to be another player. That's the real thing, right? There's a lot of people that feel like when they say that this game is about players, it's like the actual overall effect of Eve should be only shaped by human interaction, and then the NPCs function as like a way to get ISK or an activity as itself on the side, not as an actual like player entity with its own capabilities in the game, right? That's the disconnect, right? You know, are the NPCs backdrop that are there to allow us to collect bounties and have a game, or are we living in a game of living Stellaris where we are just a pilot inside of that, right? No, we're doing the algos. All right. But first, we are going to talk about how to get into faction warfare and insurgencies. So I have already made a mega guide that goes in depth into all of the details about faction warfare about a year ago. It's pretty long. It's got a lot of information in it. It's really good if you're going to be getting into faction warfare, especially long term. However, I have gotten a lot of feedback, and rightfully so, that it is like, if you're just like, I want to see what it takes to get into this and why I might want to do this. Like, it wasn't aimed at, ironically, it wasn't aimed at people that were outside of faction warfare. And so I wanted to try to make a introduction video, how to get into and why to get into faction warfare. And CCP, as of the recording this video, has just released the Havoc expansion, which is introduced Insurrections, which is a new, which CCP has introduced. And I might redo a lot of stuff because this is the pre-editing, okay? CCP has introduced a new, God damn it. As of this recording, we have just received the Havoc expansion, in which CCP has released a new feature called Insurgencies. I may say it wrong later. We're just going to say it's Insurgencies, okay? Moving on. So I thought that this would be a really good opportunity to kind of revisit that and not only talk about how to get into faction warfare, but also how to get into insurgencies, because there's a lot that those things have in common. And so I think that understanding both systems as one is the best idea. So as a pilot who has been teaching people how to do faction warfare for over a decade now, I'm going to give you a class on how to do about insurgencies and, you know, how to get the most out of both. So first, I want to start off by explaining what is faction warfare and what is insurgencies. In the universe of New Eden, there are 4 major player empires: the Amarr, the Minmatar, the Caldari, and the Gallente. Now, due to history that I have many videos on, but I will not go into too deeply here, these factions, or these empires, do not like at least one of the other empires. The Gallente and the Caldari have historical grudge, and the Amarr and the Minmatar have a historical grudge. The Minmatar used to be the slaves of the Amarr. The Caldari and the Gallente used to be one faction, but the Caldari has split away. So there is tension between these 4 empires, but they were effectively, they came together in a peace deal about 120 years ago, in which they all agreed to limit outright war between the 4 core main empires. Now, in 2008, a series of diplomatic failures on all levels occurred, known as the Empyrean Age. It's in a book. And this led to the decision to introduce faction warfare through what's known as the Emergency Militia War Powers Act. So basically, in order to avoid the empires going to war with each other, they instead use us as a proxy war. And so there's this contested territory for both sides, the Amarr versus the Minmatar and the Caldari versus the Gallente, in which those factions clash, and our fighting over those sites controls which of those 2 factions owns any given system at any given time. We do this by running certain plexes. We'll be going into all that later. We'll go into the details of how this whole process happens. But basically, we are fighting on behalf of our chosen empire in that empire's militia. Now, insurgencies are a new system in which the pirates, because there's the 4 core main empires, but then there's also 5 or so like pirate groups. And 2 of them, the Angel Cartel, are the main pirate group for the Minmatar, and the Garistas pirates are the main pirate group for the Caldari. And as of this recording, those are the 2 pirate factions that you can now join in their militia. So for the first time ever, we can now become part of the team of one of the pirates with the Angels or the Guristas. The Angels are connected to the Amar Minmatar war zone, and the Guristas are connected to the Caldari Gallente war zone. And what they do is the insurgency selects a key system, and it kind of spreads out from that key system. And the pirates can go in and cause corruption, and the opponents have to do stuff to cause suppression to defend the system. If the system can become fully corrupted before it can become fully suppressed, then that system actually loses a security status band. And we'll talk about the details about that later. So effectively, while the faction warfare dudes are fighting for who owns the system, the pirate groups are coming in and trying to create areas of lawless space for a period of time, loot it, pillage it, and get out. And although I'm recording this before we've even gotten the first live event of Vanguard, which is coming out on the 7th of December, which is still in the future as of this, Vanguard is going to be connected to that corruption system from day one. So this is all kind of connected together, and you in the future may know more than I about that. At any rate, what do you need to get involved? This is one of those coolest things about insurgencies. Like there's several good things. The reasons why I really like insurgencies is the fact that like a lot of people say, well, I'm a new player, or I don't have a ton of ISK or whatever, and I want to get into PvP, but I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know a way to get good enough or get enough, whatever. How do I get involved? Because ratting's boring or whatever. Faction warfare is the best place to learn PvP. It is the best place to do PvP and get paid for it. And it is the best place for solo and small gang PvP with the most action on demand in controllable time blocks. Okay, so that's why faction warfare and insurgencies are so popular. Noblox have their big, huge wars. Faction warfare has this kind of intense, constant churn of action. So how do you get involved in that action? Well, the good news is that you don't actually need much. You do need some standings. If you want to join a Empire faction, you must have no less than 0 standings with that Empire faction. So you must be at 0 or positive standings with the Empire faction in order to join that Empire faction's militia. This is all of these standings requirements are unmodified standings. The way you can find out unmodified standings is by opening up your character sheet, going to your interactions tab, going to standings, and up here in the top right, it says what your standings is up here. If you hover over the question mark, it'll say base standings. That's your unmodified standings. So if I go to if I scroll up and you see, I have 9.38 with the Gallente Federation Navy. But if I hover over this, I'll see that really I only have a 9.23, and my connection skill is increasing my standings to 9.38. So if I had the Amatar Mandate, right? So my Amatar Mandate, if the Amatar Mandate had a militia, actually that's not true. That's not a good example. This is a good example. If I wanted to join the Amar militia right now, I would not be able to just join directly, right? Because I have -2 base standings, even though my derived standings, my standings with skills is positive. So that's one of the confusing things. The other thing about that is that this only impacts you if you are trying to directly enlist, right? There's 2 ways of joining faction warfare or insurgencies. You can directly enlist by going to any station of that empire and selecting that faction. I can't do that because I'm already in the Angel Cartel, but it'll allow you to directly enlist, and then you can unenlist pretty much whenever you want. But you're only allowed, once you've unenlisted, you cannot re-enlist in a militia for 24 hours. So you can directly enlist yourself, or if you don't have the standings, you can actually enlist in a corporation that is tied to faction warfare. So example, and we'll talk a little bit about this more later, our corporation is actually, the entire corporation is enlisted in the Angel Cartel. So just joining our corporation joins the Angel Cartel, and it doesn't matter how much, what your standings with the Angel Cartel means or is, except your standings gets averaged in with the rest of the corp's standings. So if a corporation invites a whole bunch of people in, they have negative standings, the corporation can be pulled out, you know, whatever. But either way, like I said, I'll talk about that more later. You do need the standings in order to get in one way or another. You need the ships. What ships do you need? Well, as you'll see as we get to the actually how to, like, the mechanics and the sites are gated to be restricted to different size categories. So not only can you get away with running around in like frigates and destroyers, in a lot of ways it is best to run around in frigates and destroyers, and at the very least have the capability of doing so, right? Because a frigate can get into any of the sites. A destroyer can't get into the frigate sites, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then furthermore, if you're as a frigate, you can hide inside of a frigate site and know that no, like, destroyers are going to come in and just outclass you. So these are kind of cool things. This is one of the reasons why I said that it's a really good place for solo. It's a really good place for new players. So and the other thing about the sites is that all but a few of the sites have a warp in point. So you warp to a gate, then you activate the gate, you go inside, and then there's a beacon inside. When you land on the beacon, the person must land within 2K, which means if you're inside of the site, you basically get to decide what range you want to begin the engagement on. If you're a kiter, you can make sure you're far away. If you're a brawler, you can make sure you're up close. So there's this really good advantage to being inside of the site and being the defender. Not only that, but you can actually use your D-scan to see outside of the plex, to see what's coming in. You can make a decision as to whether or not you want to even stick around in the first place. So they're really interesting little sites to fight in and over, right? As things flow. But you also will need, and the thing about that is not only will you need plenty of good fits and some good options, which of course, there are plenty of good fits around. We're going to talk about some later, and I'll make other videos about it. And it's an opportunity to try things out. But most importantly, you're actually going to want to be able to start figuring out where you want to have your staging and supplies, right? Faction warfare takes place in low-sec, and while you could just go to the trade hub every single time, you're flying in cheap ships that die fast, right? So you're going to want to be able to reship fast and wherever you happen to be. Now, there are really good ways of getting around easily in faction warfare, but in general, the faster you can reship, the faster you can get into the action. So, and not only that, but as we'll talk about, there's a penalty in faction warfare where you can't go into, or it's difficult to go into, problematic, we'll say, to go into enemy high-sec space. So if you're part of the Gallente if you're part of the Gallente or the Garistas, for example, you actually can't go to Jita without things trying to kill you. So you have to get in your head. There's also but there is transportation services and all that stuff, which we'll talk about. But thinking about where you're going to want to stage out of and how you're going to want to do your staging is going to be a critical piece to you wanting to be in faction warfare, right? You want to have a regular supply of your go-to ships, whatever they end up being. Okay. So that's it for what you need. That's it. Too easy, right? Rewards and consequences. What do we get out of this, and why? What's the problem? First, we're going to talk about the consequences, the kind of the negative effects, right? So the kind of the most popular one is that, as I said, enemy high-sec is now hostile to you. This has two effects. One, anytime you are on any grid in any of their Empire systems, a group of Navy rats will spawn within a few seconds and start to try to kill you. Okay? Now, they generally web before they scram or like disrupt, so you can usually get away if you're fast enough, but just be advised, nowhere is going to be, and you can also tank them pretty easily if you want to, so don't think that there's not going to be gate camps of enemy hostiles in your own space, because they can figure out a way to like circumvent the Navy if you really care. But if you're just like, again, if you just go to Jita and grab yourself like a thorax and then try to fly it back and you're in Galente's Gallente faction warfare, chances are you're not going to make it out alive. But the other thing about that is that, and this is not talked about as much, when you are in enemy high-sec space, you also cannot cloak. So just bear that in mind. I once jumped into enemy high-sec space, and I didn't even realize that I had. I was in my Estero exploring around, and I noticed that I warped off, and I went to cloak, and the cloak failed. And I was like, what the heck? And that's when I looked over and saw what system I was in. I was like, oh no! Turn around, go back. All right. Next, war targets. Kind of what I alluded to just a little bit ago with the camping. When you join a militia, you are now at war with everyone in the hostile militia, which means if you're a Mar, you're at war with everyone in the Mimitar militia. If you're Mimitar, everybody in the Mar, blah, blah, blah. If you're in the Garistas, you're at war with everyone in the Caldari and the Gallente militia. If you're in the Angels, you're at war with everybody in the Amar and the Mimitar militia. And what that means in practice is, even if you're in your own high-sec areas, they can engage you freely. Doesn't matter where you are, in what space. Low-sec doesn't give you gate guns. There's no security standings. You are free to engage other militia, enemy militia pilots and be engaged by enemy militia pilots at any time with zero security status or zero consequences from, Concord or security. Standings. So this is the one that's kind of a little bit more controversial. A lot of people, one of the things I hear the most about faction warfare and why people don't get into it is because of the impact on standings. They hear that like, oh, well, I don't want to be locked out of a Mars space forever. And I think this is a combination of confusing how the standings thing works and a little bit of old history and that whole enemy high-sec hostile thing. Because it is true that you can lose enough standings. If you get below like -2 or -5 with an empire, you're now persona non grata in all of that high-sec area until you can get the standings up, and it's a pain in the butt to do that. So nobody wants to lose faction standings. Gaining your faction standings is the hardest thing in the entire game. And yeah, don't take missions that target other empires. Pro tip. At any rate, so I was in faction warfare for nearly 6-7 years, like of actual in the faction warfare time, because I took some breaks here and there. And yet I still have enough positive standings that I can stay in Caldari space. This comes from three factors. One, the vast majority of standings loss that you get from that people think about comes from the missions, right? There are faction warfare missions, which I am not going to cover very much in this guide because I don't like them. But one of the consequences of them are that you lose standings for doing them. So as long as you avoid those missions, you won't lose very much standings. You lose standings with the enemy militia by killing enemy militia pilots, but that does not derive to the Empire, right? So you can kill enemy militiamen all you want. The only real reason why you should lose standings with your Empire faction is that you get a huge standings bonus when you get promoted. So every time you cross a threshold of 1.0 or of 1 positive standings unmodified, so when you go to 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, you get promoted, and each promotion gives you an increasing faction standings buff of the Empire that you're part of. That is one of the really good reasons to be in faction warfare, because it actually gives you this. It's one of the best ways to get faction standings for any given empire. which is, and you know, it's actually pretty easy to farm because the sites, like every site will give you the same amount of standings regardless of how many people are in it. So that's pretty cool. But either way, that standings boost does derive to the other side, which obviously won't like it. So I have had to like run this SOE epic arc a couple of times for the Caldari in order to stay above -2, but you know, whatever, it's been not too bad. Yeah. And then the last thing about the major impact of it is the impact of insurgency itself, right? So when a system becomes fully corrupted by an insurgency, if it is a high-sec system, then it now follows low-sec Crime Watch rules. In other words, attacking another player will only give a suspect flag, and only attacking a pod will give you a criminal flag. So that means you're free to engage other players, you're free to engage their structures, you're free to engage their, you know, whatever else in the high-sec, and it only gives you a suspect flag during that time. This is very powerful. You know, even though insurgencies only last for a relatively short period of time, only a few days, it is very powerful for, you know, suddenly there's a freighter pilot that doesn't know what's going on, and he thought he was safe, and he is not, right? But kind of more interestingly, if a null-sec system becomes fully suppressed, or sorry, if a low-sec system becomes fully suppressed, it actually starts to allow bubbles and bombs as if it was nullsec. Now, at this time, there's a lot of weird bugs about it and the way it works with standings and everything else. Hopefully, they'll work on that, and that is not an issue when you're watching this in the future, but who knows? Either way, the point is that, you know, the real extra goal of insurgencies is to cause havoc, right? To make high-sec systems that are normally safe now not safe. To make suddenly low-sec systems have bubbles and bombs, which introduces all new strategies into those areas of space. And also the insurgency itself, if the corruptors are successful, then when the system is handed back to the original owner, it will be vulnerable, which allows it to be immediately taken by the opposite side if the owning side doesn't secure it right away. Yes, you can. Yeah, if you're having issues running the SOE arc because you're in warfare, you can either drop corp or remove your direct enlistment for a day or two, run it, and then hop back in. You know, but if you're in a corp, it shouldn't really matter that much. Because A, you can't go into those high-sec systems while you're in the in faction warfare anyways, and B, so like you don't become attacked until you're under -5. The reason why I didn't want to go under -2 with Caldari is because that's when they lock you out of missions, and like I can pull level 4 missions with the Caldari Navy, but if I got below -2 with the Caldari, then I wouldn't be able to run those level 4s no matter what my standings with the individuals are. So I was still safe. Even if I dropped below the -2, I still could have run the SOE Epic Arc to get myself back up. That is a good question. If you do burn it that bad, like it's so hard to get faction standings that the plan on how to fix your standings is simply just called the plan. Just Google EVE Online the plan and you'll find it. It's terrible. Don't lose faction standings. All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to negative impact is the concept of AWOXers, okay? Now, AWOXing is a term in EVE that is probably unfamiliar to anybody who is outside of EVE, but what AWOXing means is when a person who is presumably friendly kills another player, right? A team killer, as it were. So in this case, if you're in the same militia and they attack you, that's called AWOXing, all right? Now, the AWOXer does lose standings with their faction. So if you do it enough, you'll get kicked out of the faction. But shooting the actual ship itself is a pretty low faction negative. Killing pods is a huge faction negative, okay? So thanks for the subs, by the way, guys. So that actually has some interesting implications, because if you as a faction warfare pilot are accidentally on the kill of a enemy pod, of a militiaman's pod, say by a smart bomb, or even like, this is one of the things that are kind of bad about bubbles right now. If another militia pilot in your militia tries to warp out of your own bubble, that can give you a standings hit with the militia, which is bad. So especially when like it could happen with like 20 dudes all at the same time, and suddenly your entire standings is just nuked. That would very much suck. But yeah, the point is that, and this is even on a broader scale, the militia has a lot of drama and a lot of conflict, intergroup conflict, interpersonal conflict, fights over plexes, all sorts of stuff. Because unlike empires, the militia, like anybody can join the militia, and you can't kick them out. Like there's no authority. There's nobody that can say like, oh, you don't belong in the militia, and so like kicks them out of the militia, like there is in an alliance. You don't get to pick who your family are. And so you got to learn to get to, how well you learn to get together and work with each other and coordinate. It's still very much a teamwork game. So, for years, the reason why the Gallente were more powerful than the Caldari, in spite of the fact that the Caldari had superior numbers, was because the Gallente had superior organization. And now the Gallente are far more fractured and have been much in a much weaker state because of it. Wow, why is everything going off? All right. Don't be boring, make enemies even if they're just NPCs ones. I mean, I honor that opinion, and I'm starting to embrace it as well, but it's a decision that you should make thoughtfully. I'll put it that way. But yeah, that's kind of the bad things about faction warfare. So let's go back to some of the good things, okay? The good things are the LP store. Well, actually, I guess the insurgency impact is not necessarily bad. I wove that in there. So the main reward that you get in faction warfare and insurgencies are LP for those factions. Okay, this is the double-edged sword of faction warfare. Okay, you rarely get ISK rewards from faction warfare stuff. It's mostly in the form of LP. And what that means is that you end up getting just stupid amounts of ISK worth of LP. If we're back from the break. Apparently an ad got inserted. You get stupid amounts of LP from doing faction warfare and insurgencies, especially given what you can buy with it. However, everyone's getting stupid amounts of faction LP, and therefore the things that you get with it are suppressed by that fact on some level, depending on the popularity of that faction at any given time. Like as the factions wax and wane in popularity, there's less people getting that LP. There's less of that LP. There's less of the stuff that comes from that LP. The LP's worth more, right? And we'll talk about how to calculate all that stuff. But in general, we can break down the kinds of things that you get on these faction stores into 3 categories. 1, faction ships, modules, and ammo. This is what a lot of people think about, right? You join the Gallente militia, you can get Federation Navy ships, Catalyst Navy issues, Brutix Navy issues, Dominic's Navy issues, the Moros Navy issue. If you go to the Caldari, you get the Osprey Navy issue, and all of those things, right? If you go to the Garistas, you get the Worm and the Gila and the new one, the Alligator. If you go to the Angels, you get the Dramiel and the Macariel and the Kizrael and the Azrael Titan, which is the new one as of right now. All that sort of stuff. So, all of that's really cool. But then on top of that, there's also faction modules. And this is honestly, the ships are very common, and so they often are not the best value for your LP. Faction modules often hit a sweet spot for value, but they're often hard to move in quantity. But either way, there are some winners out there. You know, Republic Fleet cap batteries, Federation Navy plates, Imperial Navy plates, you know, Caldari Navy shield, anything, all these kinds of things. Not only can you use them on your own stuff, you can just easily get, you can easily get a, you know, it's easier for you to get basic faction gear. So it's easier for you to upgrade your ship with basic faction gear because you don't have to pay the full value of it. Because again, you have untold amount of LP if you're doing faction warfare with any sort of activity. And so any excuse to use your LP is great. So like I would never fly a normal Catalyst ever again. Why not ever like fly Catalyst Navy issues? And if you want to know how to build faction Navy ships, I have a whole guide on it on the YouTube, which is hopefully being linked somewhere at some point. But the faction ammo, this is a really good one if you want to cash out your LP. You know, everybody wants faction ammo. Faction ammo is always a good way to deal with LP. So, you know, it's real simple. Implants. Same. Every single LP store has a basic collection of all of the basic implants, but then each LP store has their own Empire's implants. Some of them are pretty good, especially like in the pirate ones, of course. You have, you know, the Saviors and the Halos and crystals. Everybody likes some crystals. You know, etc. And then finally, the third thing is data cores. Data cores I found has been the ones that, like, if you watch them the closest, you can get at the top to get the most value. But data cores are, of course, used for T2 invention. So they're used for, you know, different, you can get a collection of the data cores available, mostly are the ones related to your Empire's sciences. Does that make sense? So, and usually they're, you know, like not all data cores are created equal when it comes to their value. We'll talk about that later. So that's kind of what you're doing it for. And other than like the prestige of doing it and fighting for your empire and all that kind of stuff. So we got it. That's what you need. That's why you're doing it. Let's talk about joining the action. So there are several UIs that are involved in the faction warfare universe. The first is, as with most things, we're actually going to start with the agency. The agency under encounters has faction warfare and has pirate insurgencies. So a lot of the basic information, including how to get involved with it, opening up their main dedicated windows, and guides to the different kinds of sites, etc., can be found here, and the ability to look for systems. This is incredibly powerful, guys. So you can see anywhere I think in the universe where sites are. So I'm only going to be looking for Angel Cartel sites right now. Hold on, can I look for? No, I can't. I can't look for Mimitar or Caldari or anything like that because I am not in those. So, but I can look at the status of any of the systems in the insurgency. I can look at what sites are there. This tells me a lot of things. It can tell me if there's a lot of sites like this. I can tell you that not a lot of people have been plexing in on Amamake recently. There's a lot of really juicy sites in there. We'd have to figure out as to why. Something tells me it's violent. You know, but this system has probably been being run more. I can tell you right now that there's almost certainly somebody running this system right now because there's only one site, right? So that's really useful. And on the, it does let me do it, but it'd be in the faction warfare area. Of course it would. So if we go to the faction warfare systems, we can likewise say, okay, well, within 10 jumps, I want to know I want to know all of the systems that are Amar controlled, and you can look at the faction warfare plexes that are in any given site and do a system and do the same kind of analysis, right? Like all of these places are Frontline. What are these people doing? How are there all these sites? At any rate. Yeah. So also in the agency, like I said, there's the guide and there's the way to link to the different places, open faction warfare window. And this also allows you to open faction warfare agents, which is where you get faction warfare missions, which I will not teach you about. It's my form of protest. Now, sorry, I keep closing it. You can also open up the dedicated faction warfare and insurgency window. The faction warfare window looks like this. It allows you to see all of the different systems. In faction warfare, systems that are adjacent to an enemy system is called a frontline. Systems adjacent to a frontline but not an enemy system are a command post. And systems that are 2 jumps away from any frontline or more is called a rear guard. So all this dark red is rear guard. All of the light red is, and light yellow, I should say, is command outposts. And the red is, command operations, sorry. And the bright red is a frontline. Now, you can actually see on this map that right here is the center of the current Angel insurgency. So the insurgency layers on top of the normal faction warfare map. And while it does target mostly the side that is winning, it doesn't necessarily relate to the ongoing conflict in the same sort of way. So, and also, as you can see, I can see where the fob is, but I can't see where else is infected, right? Likewise, on the Caldari Gallente side, same thing. It does have a couple other indicators. These show the locations of shipcasters, which I'll talk about later. And this other one, these show battlefields, which are sites that we will talk about later. Now, the insurgency window is kind of similar, but is more committed to just its one little area. So this shows all of the systems that are currently corrupted, or being corrupted by the insurgencies. I should point out, I guess, to be fair, if a system becomes fully suppressed, it does get more security in the form of like really, really powerful gate guns and other such things to make it safer. So like this system right here, Damelin, right now is actually even safer than normal because of really powerful gate guns and such. So it's a pretty okay 0.5 system to travel through at this exact moment. But this system right here, that's fully corrupted. This system is going to allow bubbles. So don't think that Damelin's safe. So it's one jump in. Oh, there you go. Or there you go. Those aren't going to be safe. Those are probably going to be bubble camped. Anywho, so you can see all of the states of the insurgencies. It's also worth noting that at stage 3, an insurgency starts with only 4 systems. But anytime an insurgency hits at least stage 3 in any system, it'll spread to one more system. Now, that'll normally be adjacent, right? Like, that's already, yeah. Can I find a good example of this? Yes, Damelin. Now, Damelin is fully suppressed, right? But if it wasn't, and therefore we could still corrupt it, if this would have gotten to corruption 3, like if it got into corruption 3 right now, it can't spread to any of its adjacent systems, but it's still got to spread. So chances are it would spread like over here to, nope, can't spread that direction because those are 0.8 systems, can't spread to 0.8. It might even spread as far over as here to Lanton or like over in this direction. Nope. Yeah, it could be those. But the point is that it won't, like, it'll spread somewhere, even if its adjacency is all filled up. And as you can see here on the side, there's the points that are keeping track of the side who gets, when you fully suppress or fully corrupt a system, your side gains a point. When your side gains 7 points, you either win the insurgency if you're pirate, or you can now bash the fob to win the insurgency as the defenders. Okay? This also opens up the information panel that we saw earlier. We can go find objectives, which opens up the agency there. And we can go to learn more, which opens back up the agency there. Same thing as the learn more over here. And we can switch over to the other war zone. and see this is how the Garissas are doing right now. And you can also look, you can see each other's war zone, which is kind of interesting. I think it's cool. But let's see. I think all of these are going to be. Wait. Oh, yeah, no. Can Prism spread? Yeah, so if Prism, when Prism gets a Corruption 3, it'll probably spread to Salmonuni, even though it's not adjacent to Salmonuni, because it already has all of the adjacent systems corrupted. That's it for the basic UI, with the exception of understanding the probe window and the way sites appear. So new sites always... That's intense. New sites always appear first on the probe window, right? So you can see I have an overview for just all my beacons, and I have an overview. All right, here's my probe window, right? So there's no sites open at this exact moment. This is how every site begins. Now, the very first time anybody even begins to warp to it, it will now appear on the overview. That's called opening the site. And then from that point on, it'll be on the overview until it despawns and disappears from both locations, okay? To demonstrate that, if I now hit warp to this outpost, and I'm going to immediately hit control space to stop my ship, okay? Wait, what? There we go. So I'm going to hit warp, and then control space. Did you see? It just spawned. So you can use that to see when someone's warping to a site, or at least opening it up. And if someone's referring to a site you don't know, you can't figure out what the hell they're talking about, it's probably just still on the probe window. This is also true, by the way, for a lot of different sites, especially event sites do it this way. So keep that in mind. I think that's about it for UI. The only other thing I should say is on your overview, you can open up your overview settings, go to your appearance. No. Is this? Yeah. Yeah. So go to appearance, go to color tag and background, and you want pilot is at war with your militia. Or, well, no, sorry. You want pilot is in your militia or allied to your militia below terrible, criminal, all that stuff. In fact, actually, I just realized that this overview isn't even fixed. So right now, hold on. Why is my overview this broken? Huh. That's weird. So if your overview looks like this, you should probably fix it. Oh, wait. Why? Because I'm looking at only the beacons window, which I don't think I care about. Hold on. Does that matter? No, it doesn't. Whatever. I'll have to look at this later. But you'll want to make sure that this... Am I dumb? No, it needs to be above, doesn't it? I'm going to start over. I think it has to be above, isn't it? Somebody confirm that I'm an idiot, please. And then I'll redo this segment. Please. Hold on. I have nothing on my overview. Hold on. Can I? Okay. So it's green with purple, right? So if I go like this, then it'll turn green, right? Yep, there it goes. If I put it above. So that's how it works, right? The higher it is on the overview, then it takes precedent. I'm so dumb. Okay, so you need to one thing that you do need to make sure you do is fix your overview. or at least make sure it's fixed. And so you want the pilot is in your militia or allied with your militia above any sort of standings, BS, criminal status, suspect status, whatever. It's because, like, check it out. Right now, it shows a purple dot with a green cross. Hopefully you can see that all right. If I pull it down underneath that, the corporation, it'll switch. Now it shows a green dot, right? If I put it above, it shows a purple dot. If I go to the background, it can do the same thing, right? Right now it shows the purple. No. Oh, it's because the militia is purple. Got it. But here the militia is teal. So for background, if I pull this up to above corporation, you'll see that the drones themselves turn teal. So you want to do this because this controls what takes precedent, along with the filters, which control what shows up on your screen. You'll want to ensure that you see militia pilots, even if they go suspect, even if they go criminal, so that way you don't accidentally AWOC somebody. All right? That's it for UI. So the next thing that I want to explain is the shipcasters and the fobs. These are relatively new ways of getting around, and the way that they work, they're slightly different for the empire, between the empires and the insurgencies. But if I open up the faction warfare map, as we saw before, here is a shipcaster, and here is the shipcaster, interstellar shipcaster. These are landing pads, rather. So, in each of the factions' capitals, or, well, faction warfare factions' capitals. So, in Mechator, for the Amar, in, right? Am I dumb? Oh, right. I have to switch to the other side. So in Mechator for the Amar, in Ammo for the Mimitar, in Samanuni for the Caldari, and in Taki for the Gallente, these shipcasters can bring you to any constructed landing pad. Now, the location of the landing pads for the militias get chosen by the AI and are mostly focused on front lines and commands operations. And so you can see that it has targeted the systems of Hades, Panelin, and Vlilarir. However, that pad, once it's been selected, still has to be built by other militia pilots. So, as you can see here, the Hades gate, the Hades one, as you can see here, the Hades one and the Tanelin one are built right now. So that one and that one is linked. This one is not linked. You can't actually jump to it right now. On the Caldari side, you can see that they currently don't have anything linked. The Amar Mimitar, the Amar have one linked in Amanake, and the Mimitar have one linked in Aga. So, like, the choice of where the shipcaster goes is kind of a combination between the AI military director and the players for, you know, approving of the selection by building the actual shipcaster there. So what does the shipcaster do? The shipcaster is a thing that sits in the home system, and it cycles 1 minute on, 1 minute off, where it picks one of its landing platforms, and then it goes 1 minute off, and then another landing platform, and then 1 minute off. Now, this is of potential platforms. So since the faction warfare groups have 3 potential platforms, it cycles to all 3 of them, even if those aren't built. So if you have only one built like this one, it'll cycle to Aga for 1 minute, and then do nothing for 5 minutes, and then cycle back to Aga for 1 minute, right? However, the Gallente one will cycle for Hades for 1 minute, cycle nothing for 3 minutes, cycle Tanelin for 1 minute, cycle nothing for 1 minute, and then cycle back to Hades. I'm pretty sure that's That's right. Okay. Now, anytime it's linked, you can just jump through. You can only jump through if you're a militia pilot, and you'll land within a 30-kilometer sphere of the shipcaster beacon. And there is now friendly rats that will help defend you at those shipcaster beacons. So they aren't nearly as camped as you may have heard about in the past. So these actually become pretty interesting and useful logistical tools for the different empires. It's usually, like, depending on where you are, if I'm in the Gallente space, like let's say I'm here, right, in Oix, I can actually go, rather than, if I need to go like all the way to Tanelin because there's a battlefield there or whatever, I can actually just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think it is, get to this shipcaster in Intaki, and then jump to Tanelin. And I can bring whatever I want. I could bring a battleship if I wanted to, straight from Intaki as a staging area. So that's cool. That's how the Empire shipcaster works. The pirate shipcaster is way cooler. So the pirate shipcaster, on the other hand, is tied to the 2 different insurgencies. So it only has 2 targets. The pirate shipcaster is located in the system of Zarzak, which is the home system of the Deathless and the key system for both militias, the Guristas and the Angels. The shipcaster beacon itself is one of the, at the moment, 5 protected grids in Zarzak. The rest of the Zarzak is completely inhospitable. But basically, it cycles through its 2 targets. So it'll cycle to the Guristas target location for 1 minute, then off, then to the Gallente target, or the Angel target position, then off, then the Guristas target position. The reason why I say target position is because, of course, that changes every time. This is completely selected by the NPC. At the beginning of every insurgency, both sides are given a 24-hour warning, as we saw on the faction warfare map. This anchor appears 24 hours before things start, right? Allowing both sides to see, and you'll actually be able to see all 5 of the initial systems that will be attacked by the pirates first before it spreads it all. We'll see all of that 24 hours ahead of time. And at that time, the fob is being set up. After that, then the shipcaster will cast people directly to the fob. The fob is both a structure that you can dock in and put stuff in with an LP store to help you cash out of your LP, but it also tethers. So unlike the empires, when you jump into to the space, to the destination system, you will be tethered. You will be safe. So that's pretty cool, especially since, the system might be lawless and full of bubbles otherwise. However, of course, there's only the one place that you're going to go into. So, like, it becomes a strategic place for both sides to control throughout the course of the insurgency. Also, that makes it so that Zarzak is also a pretty strategic, important place to control. And as of right now, regrettably, bubbles are still allowed in Zarzak. Hopefully that will change someday. But until it does, there is a lot of danger when it comes to warping to the gate. But you can always warp a... first of all, you can warp like a Corvette to the gate to check to see if there's a bubble first. Chances that somebody gets a bubble there in the 2 minutes or whatever in between is really rare. But also, if you look in space and you point the camera towards the shipcaster, there'll be a little dot above it in space, no matter where you are. And if you click on that, it'll show you the exact status of that shipcaster in the system. So it'll tell you how much time is left and what it's connected to, if anything. So, and the shipcaster itself gives some interesting details about the destination, the kills in the system, and other stuff like that. So what I like to do is I undock from the fulcrum. I check to see whether or not there's a bubble. If there's no bubble, then I go back to the fulcrum so that way I can dock whenever I need to and I don't get caught. And I just watch if I need to, if the shipcaster's not already active, right? And then I'll watch to see when it's like going to become active Angel in like 10 seconds and then warp to it and then jump through, right? So, Yes, jump freighters cannot dock to fobs. So it is a structure, but it does have special restrictions. Also, as of right now, if you if you leave your stuff in the fob after the insurgency ends, it will go into asset safety. Now, the good news is that an insurgency has to always be in a temperate planet system, or a system with a temperate planet, and most of those systems have stations in it. And so chances are you'll be able to just asset safety it in 5 days to a station system for like 0.5% to pull it out. So it's more of a minor inconvenience than anything else. But just be aware of that. You know, make sure to, once you win the insurgency, you've got 24 hours to move everything out. Yeah, either way, cool. So that's the shipcaster and the fob. Let's talk about combat sites. What is your opinion on joining any of the pirate factions to become an industrialist and build pirate ships? Great idea. I mean, not only does Zarzak provide a great market for you, it does give you pretty decent bonuses, especially if you don't have a better structure to access. And, you know, a little bit of plexing suddenly gets you a lot of really cool blueprints. The pirate ship stuff does need the gas huffing and hacking stuff in order to, like, build it out. But, you know, you'll be able to source that pretty well. You park your Angel Titan in the fob. Man, I want you to be able to build the Angel Titan as the only capital you can build in Zarzak. Anywho. Combat sites. Combat sites have are broken into kind of two different. Actually, that's not even a really fair way. There are up to 3 pieces of information. Let me start over. Combat sites. Now, without going too deep into how faction warfare actually works, how insurgency works when it comes to, like, they're getting too deep into the weeds of all that. The majority of, like, the way you win is by completing more combat sites for your team than the opponent does. Okay? And they're different for each side. We'll talk about that, but they're mostly mechanically similar. So the biggest thing to understand about the combat sites is their nomenclature, i.e. the naming that they use, and how that what that means for what can be done in those sites. So there's 3 pieces of information that you need. The first piece of information is it can either say Navy NVY or Advanced ADV. If it says NVY, then only T1 and Navy faction ships are allowed in. This means no pirate ships. This means no T2. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a battleship site. You can't bring an assault frigate into it. That's a T2, right? A advanced site allows any T1 or T2 of its ship class, with T3s counting as 1 ship class higher. So T3 destroyers can make it into cruiser sites, and T3 cruisers can make it into the battleship sites. All right. Actually, getting stuff into Zarzak as an indie pilot isn't too bad, especially since all industrial ships have nullification capabilities. So it's honestly not terrible to get things into Zarzak. I've been watching people do it all the time. The second thing that would be useful to know, because it will be, so usually, actually, I don't know. The second thing that'd be useful to know is what I call the dash value. Okay, they'll either be a -1 or a -5 or a -25 or a -50. I mean, or a -10. I think there's a -25. There might not be. I don't know. Whatever. What this tells you is not how many people are allowed in the site. As many people can go into the site as possible. What this tells you is how many people you need at minimum to gain the maximum LP that is available in that site. Okay? So if a site rewards 10,000 LP to a player, if it's a -1, then that 10,000 LP goes to the 1 player. If there's 2 players, that 10,000 LP is split in half so that both players get 5,000 LP. However, if it's a -5, then and there's 2 players, both of those players will get 10,000 LP. If there's 5 players in it, then all 5 players will get 10,000 LP. If there's 6 players in it, the 6 players will split the 50,000 LP that is the max payout of the site. Does that make sense? So if you have 1 player in that site, effectively 40,000 potential LP is destroyed by not having other people in the site. Okay? But 1s always split evenly amongst everybody. Dash 10s are the same way with 10 players. Dash 25s are the same way with 25 players, and 50s, etc. So then the final piece of information is the actual name or type of the site. And this indicates what classes of ships are allowed in it. Okay? So a scout is a frigate site. A small allows destroyers, and everything can always allow things that are smaller. A medium allows cruisers, and a large allows battleships. There's a special kind of large that is known as an open, and open sites have no acceleration gate, which means anybody can warp to it. Now, all of the plexes, all of these fighting sites that we're talking about, are all dead space pockets, which means there's no warping within the site, only to the site. There's no probing anybody down and warping onto them. You will always warp to the site, not the person. It also means that there's no sinos in any of these sites, okay? You'd have to sino somewhere else and warp the thing in. So you can't sino into an open plex, but you could warp your cap there if you want to. Yeah. So then there are 3 other special sites as of right now. There is the battlefield, which is currently the largest site available. I think that's the Dash 50, if I remember correctly. And it's this big fight with 3 different rings that you have to control at the same time in order to gain like progress. It's for the empires. I show it off in the mega guide. You know, go watch that if you want to learn more about that. The second is the mining op, which is kind of the one that's most popular right now with the pirate insurgencies, where you go there and there's a bunch of pirates that are attacking an ore rock wall, and a bunch of Mortis rats that are attempting to defend the rock wall, and you have to show up and either kill the defenders and kill them off long enough that the Mortis give up, and you can force the ore pilot to pay off the ransom, in which case you win and everybody gets paid. Or you can kill off all the defenders and keep them, or sorry, kill off all the attackers and keep them off of the rock wall long enough for it to break or to get out of not siege, industrial core, and warp off, right? Our battlefield's Dash 30. Thank you. Battlefields are Dash 30. All right. And then oh, that actually reminds me. While in all of the sites there's rats, and in all of the sites, if the enemy's rats are present, you cannot make progress for your side. In battlefields, it's only if it's within the capture ring, but in anywhere else, any of the other plexes, if the rat is spawned at all, then the site is considered to be contested if you're not on the if you're attacking the site, right? If there's the rule is that there must be one, at least one guy on a side in faction warfare that's relevant to the site, and no one of the opposite side for it to be contested. So if you're a Gallente dude and you go into a Gallente site, there's a Gallente rat. You don't kill the Gallente rat. You don't have to because you're on the Gallente side. But if you go into a Caldari system, you have to kill the rat because otherwise there's a Caldari and a Gallente in the same site. It's now contested, right? The Gallente rat doesn't contest it for you if you're on the Gallente. Likewise, whereas on the faction warfare side, there's one rat, which is very anemic. It's basically just a DPS check to make sure you bring a big enough, boat to fight in that site. But in the pirate side, there's actually multiple rats. It's a fleet. It's a small fleet of rats fighting a small fleet of rats. So that's one of the differences. Also, the rats in the pirate sites can warp disrupt you, whereas the pirates, the faction rats, don't really interfere in that sort of way. But yeah, there is supposedly a new pirate battlefield coming out very, very soon. Probably by the time you're watching this, you know more about it than I do. So let me know or whatever. Maybe type it in the comments. We'll link, if you look down below, if I'll make an addendum to this with the new pirate site. But yeah, that's it for the main combat sites. So those are the things. Oh, sorry. One last thing about it. I guess I missed this completely. The whole thing about it is that you want to take and hold that site and run down a timer. The timer stops if it's contested. But basically you just push it down, or you run up the timer for you. If you get pushed out and somebody else comes in, like if the Caldari make 5 minutes of progress on a 10-minute site, and then a Gallente come in, they have to unwind that 5 minute of progress first. So they would have to do it for a total of 15 minutes. Okay. So you can actually like plex up a site to like just before it concludes and then leave to make it just a giant pain in the butt to give to people. Now these, when they're completed, pay out LP and faction standings. As I mentioned, the LP split, the faction standings you get no matter what. You have to be within 30 kilometers of the button, which is the little thing in the center where the timer is above, in order to get credit. Yeah. As I said, you want to know more about like actually fighting within the plexes, I would go to the Mega Guide. But suffice it to say, the plexes are a really interesting combat site. What are these home front sites that I'm seeing? Part of faction warfare? Nope, those are home fronts. It's 5-man team-based PvE. So in addition to plex fighting, there is other activities now that have been added recently that allows you to that allows you to support your group without necessarily just doing the plex fighting. Okay. And these are related to the corruption mechanic and the advantage system. I haven't really mentioned the advantage system much yet, but in faction warfare, every system has not only its contested value, which controls how much control which it indicates how much control the owning side currently has over the system, but it also has the advantage, where the two different sides can build up advantage by doing different activities, and that represents, or that affects them by basically the higher your advantage, the more your actions make progress, right? Like if you have a really high advantage, you will just get more progress made, more closer to, you'll move it either towards vulnerable by a larger amount per site. You don't get paid more, but it just makes more progress than if you had like no advantage. Now there is actually special sites that can be done to do advantage. There are sites that spawn based on advantage that has been built up, that are basically like crystallized advantage in space, like supply depots. And then there are advantage create generators, like rendezvous points that spawn every, I think, 20 minutes in frontline and command operation systems. You go there, you kill a bunch of rats, there's a battleship, you kill it, it raises the advantage up. But both of these are dependent on time, right? So the other thing is that you can get listening posts and propaganda beacons, which can also influence the advantage. And those are like little plexes, open plexes that you drop down, and it has its own timer, and you kill the rats just like any other plex, although a few more rats than a normal plex. It's actually closer to like a mini crab beacon, if that makes any sense to you. If it doesn't, then whatever. But when that's done, it impacts the advantage system. Propaganda station increases advantage. Listening post reduces the advantage of the opponent's side. Now, the way you get those, though, is through special hacking sites. So while all this combat is going on in the front lines and command operations, in the rear guards, where the normally safe areas, there is actually new hacking sites that are spawning, data sites that are exclusive to faction warfare. Non-faction warfare members cannot even engage with these sites. You cannot hack the can if you're not part of the correct militia. But the problem is that the site itself has multiple cans. You don't know which one has the good stuff. So there's a whole thing about it. I'm pretty sure I've talked about it in a video, but you have to bring a cargo scanner to scan the different cans, figure out which one you want to hack, and hack it, and take the good stuff and get off, because as soon as you hack the first can, the response fleet begins to show up, which, unless you're like in a T3 cruiser, you're not going to deal with very well. So the point is that you can get these data chips, which are eluding my name right now. Hopefully somebody will throw them in here for me. But those get turned in at the LP store to turn into the listening post and the command and the broadcast, or listening posts and propaganda broadcast things, right? So though, you know, the guys who are doing the military, the guys who are doing the big moves to try to attack systems and, you know, the groups and stuff like that, they want large amounts of those things, even though they're pretty rare to get and hard to get, in order to quickly influence the advantage system, which makes those very valuable for people who want to participate and help out your militia, but want to have a more direct link to ISK, because you can usually sell the chips to people, or you can actually run the site itself. You can run the beacon for LP, but also, you know, maybe like I used to do a lot of exploration as my secondary activity when I was in faction warfare. I still love exploration, so adding those data sites to my kind of travels really kind of helped making that more valuable, and makes data sites way more valuable in low sec. One of those regards hacking sites in groups of people might be fun. Each person gets a can and waits for it. Right. Yeah. The idea of like synchronized hacking is definitely a thing. However, one of the biggest problems with that is that there's often only one can that has anything good. So, you know, you could bring something that could kill all the rats. You could bring multiple people to hack. But every single time it's just like, maybe one site out of 5 or 10 would even use such a thing. So, yeah. And then, of course, next, there is roaming rats, okay? In any of the insurgency systems that get above suppression or corruption of 3, is it 2 or 3? I think it's 2, with the harder ones showing up at 3. Have these rats that spawn in the belts and all over the place, and they warp around, and they operate as like live fleets. Kind of like you see in Triglavian minor victory systems and Edencom systems and such, or in Pochfin itself. And these rats are loyal to the either the empires, well, really Upwell, if it's suppression, and they're loyal to the invading or the insurgency. What's the verb of that? The pirate faction performing the insurgency, if it's corruption. Now, these rats are kind of just normal, and although I mean, like, you're fighting a fleet, but whatever. They don't actually provide any support towards suppression or corruption that I know of. However, there are rare spawns amongst these rats that can then be turned in. So, insurgent, yeah, there you go. Insurgents, there you go. With everything I got confused with before, I didn't want to try to make guesses. But so you go around and you find these rare rats that are named after the commanders. So it's like Zohar for angels, Esri Hokuzotsu. So it's Hokuzotsu for the Garistas, and then it's actually like Kashia and Consortium for their like upgraded rats. Fun fact, that's because it was originally going to be Edencom, and Kashia is the leader of Edencom, but I digress. Actually, no, it's not. Hold on. It's just Consortium, isn't it? Yes, I think that, no, the Kashia is the name of the officer mod that you can get, but the actual rat itself is just Consortium. Either way, you kill those rats, and they have a chance of dropping an item that you then take back to your home base, and you can turn in for a box that gives, depending on who it is, like different mutaplasmids for. Oh man, what is the mutaplasmids? It's the new mutaplasmids. Oh, for the Edencom Vorton tuning system mutaplasmids and some other stuff like that, drugs, whatever. But yeah, some rewards for turning those in. So that can be worth a lot. And then, of course, with the insurgency impact on a more player interaction level, once the insurgency hits certain points, with corruption especially, it insurgencies. All right. Freedom fighters, we'll just call them that. So, obviously, whether or not it's low sec that now allows bubbles or high sec that now allow attacking, both of those offer opportunities for people to kind of wreak some chaos, given the temporary conditions and people's maybe being not really prepared to deal with that. We'll have to see how that plays out over time. But, obviously that's definitely a thing to do is, anytime that there's insurgencies that are corrupted, there's probably going to be bubble camps going on and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, yeah, that's a thing to do. But so there's plenty of things to do that are related to the insurgency and the faction warfare stuff directly. And then, of course, on top of that, there's all the normal low sec stuff, good data sites or good hacking sites, I should say. Some other special sites, Mordu sites. Most events have the best sites in low sec, all kinds of stuff. So there's lots of stuff to do in faction warfare, but those are the faction warfare specific activities. As I mentioned before, there are missions, but that's all you get to know about them. Next, my next section, I would like to call We Live in a Society. So, as I mentioned earlier, you don't get to choose who your brothers are, right? That's part of the whole thing. It's about working with people in order to try to make things happen. Now, the war zone can be big, so people can have different territories and all that sort of stuff. But usually what happens is you'll have like the local level people trying to operate in a given system or do a thing. And then you'll have like corp and alliance levels where you have these home staging systems. And then you have the militia efforts, which are usually surrounding around battlefields, structure bashes, bigger kind of things, right? So all of the militias attempt to maintain some kind of upper cohesion, for better or for worse. But it really does, it is basically a bunch of people operating alone together, if that makes sense. Or like coming together just enough to be able to do the stuff together. So it is, when you don't need to join a corporation to join the militia. You can always just directly enlist. However, if you're going to do that, I actually do strongly recommend you find a militia corp and join them. Make sure they're good. If they're not great, go ahead and leave. And the reason why is because there's a lot of considerations, as I've kind of talked about already, when it comes to doing faction warfare. How are you going to supply your ships? How are you going to replace your ships? What are you going to do with your LP? A lot of groups solve those collective problems for people with, at least knowledge of the freighter services and, the jump freighter services and the, ships on contract or on market or, access to fleets with other people, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the cool things that can happen, or what happens, is that when you join the militia, you get into this militia chat, which can be, terrible. It can be great, whatever. Everybody who's in the militia is in this chat at any given time. So one of the things I really like about this is that, like, you don't need to find the militia group first. You can just join the militia, then go out into the war zone, start plexing in some sites. You'll run into people and you check them out if they're in a militia group. You know, if there's a battlefield going on, you just meet up with some people. You'll probably get invited into a fleet in order to coordinate with them. And you'll be able to find a good faction warfare group for you, right? And then that becomes your group. So there is this really nice kind of onboarding process once you understand the basics of faction warfare, like watching this video. So that's how militia chat works, and militia corps and alliances. You know, obviously direct enlistment means that no corporation or alliance needs to be in faction warfare, but a lot of groups still choose to be for some advantages, but also just to allow people to be able to be in the militia without necessarily having the good standings themselves. The standings get averaged between the entire corp or alliance. Well, yeah, corp. I think it's per corp, but either way. And you know, yeah, you recruited plenty of people in the fleet, have saved them from war targets that my fleet had saved from war targets. Yeah, or hell, killing a person and then inviting them. You know, that's always a good strategy too. So there you go. You know, you don't have to join a corp to get into faction warfare, but if you don't, one of your first goals in faction warfare, even before you start settling in on where your staging area is going to be, is maybe finding a good faction warfare group. There is, I think all of the militias have at least one, trauma aside, like militia Discord. So going there, figuring out who the players are, figuring out what, because corps have different personalities. And so it's usually pretty easy to figure out, or, you know, you can, not easy, but you can figure out which one will be a good home for you. And unlike alliances, it's not like they're all sort of homogenous because they're all in the same alliance. We're all just kind of in the militia together and each have completely different ideas of what it means to be in the militia and what our goals are, you know? So, but that's part of the fun. And then, of course, you got to fund yourself, right? Part of living in society is you got to make some money, right? So let's talk about cashing out. In order to cash out, you have to have kind of three things. One, what to buy. Two, where to buy it. And three, how to turn that into money, right? So step one, how to buy. There is a website. There's a website named fuzzwork.co.uk, and it has an LP store at /LP store. Thank you so much for that, Sheesh, for the guinea pigs. I spelled guinea pigs wrong earlier. I am so bad at spelling. Yes, they're doing very good. Thank you. I got to clean their cage after this. But yes, I appreciate everything, guys. And also, Sheesh, it's always good to see you. Any rate, so this is Fuzzworks at fuzzworks.co.uk /LP store. You can go here and pick any LP store that you want. It doesn't show it on this because it's a drop-down menu, but hold on. Light mode for now. I don't know if that's better or worse, but if you, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to pick the first one I find. You know, and I guess it just so happens to be Federal Defense Union. And you can check whether or not you want it to be the blueprints, and then sell prices or buy prices. You know, sell price. The difference, of course, is that buy orders you can sell right away to. Sell orders you'll probably get more money for, but it might take longer to sell. One of the good things about when it comes to cashing out, it's actually a really good idea to look at buy orders, because if you find an incredibly good deal on a buy order, you can just fill it really quick and make money knowing how much money you're going to make. if you see really good deals on a sell order, you don't actually know if it's going to sell at that value, right? So if you're looking to make a quick buck, looking at the buyer prices isn't a bad idea as long as you get something that's just like an objectively good purchase. And you want to measure this by ISK per LP, right?
For the guinea pigs.
For the guinea pigs. You know, if you can get at least 1,000, 2,000 ISK per LP, at least for the empires, maybe more for the pirates. Things haven't really settled down. But, you know, whatever the rate is right now, you know, there's usually going to be some that are above it that are good. So let's go ahead and look at the Federal Defense Union. Now we can see here, I like to sort by ISK per LP at first. But the thing about that is that you're going to start seeing these crazy numbers. Hold on. So you can see like, oh my God, this thing. Yeah, so sorry. So the hacking items are called the decoder package and the other one. Whatever, we'll look into it later. There's a difference in price between the two, you can tell. Wait, did I just miss it? Hold on. Propaganda. What? Do I know how to spell propaganda? Do I not know how to spell propaganda? Because I don't know how to spell the word propaganda. Is it? Yeah, it's the decoder encoder, whatever. Galente, yeah, there it is. Caldari encoder splice. Wow, that is interesting. Either way, so back to what we were talking about. We can see here that this ISK per LP is insane, right? But we can also notice that the 5% volume is 1, right? So like another good example is actually this low-grade spur alpha. That's an implant. I might look at this and be like, oh my God, I can get the implant for 4 million and sell it for 44 million. And, you know, the ISK per LP is going to be 19,000. But like this 5% volume basically indicates how much of it gets moved, how much of it is on the market at any given time, right? So the issue we have here is that this value is really, really good. But if I like cashed out, it's only 2,000 LP. If I have 2 million LP and I just bought limited ocular filter betas, I would feel like I got a lot of ISK for it, but I just end up with a lot of limited ocular filter betas that I couldn't sell, right? So we want to go down and find something that's got a reasonable 5% volume. So like right now, Federation Navy 200 steel plates, 3,000 ISK per LP, 24 5% volume. So this would be a good thing for like a smaller sell at high value, right? But if you go down, if we start scrolling down, we might find a bigger number. Oh, here we go. Federation Navy antimatter. Huge volume, 1,400 ISK per LP. So if I was to be cashing out right now, I would just buy a bunch, potentially a bunch of Federation Navy antimatter and just go with it. The Moros blueprint, fine. But I also could potentially, one of the things that'd be good is pick a couple of these things. So antimatter is 1,400, Iridium's 1,400, Navy cap boosters 150 is 1,300. All these kinds of things. Like I would pick like a few of those and cash out on all of them, so that way I can save my money. So you want to check this. This is why you don't want to ask anybody what should I cash out on. This is why like me making a videos about what is a smart thing to cash out. I might start doing this like weekly or whatever if people really, really want to. But, you know, effectively, as soon as I say anything, it could potentially even impact the market. Or, you know, information like this is stale as soon as it's said out loud, right? So just going to Fuzzworks and using it to kind of analyze the stuff. Now you want to, once you see what you think is going to be a good idea, you'll want to use your market alts or like Janus or one of the other websites to check the markets to ensure that what it's seeing is the real thing and that you can still get by. You know, things can change pretty quickly. The API takes a little bit to update, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that's how to decide what to buy. So the next question is where to buy. So where to buy is really important. You can buy in any LP store of your militia's faction. So for the pirates, this means Zarzak and the Fob. For the empires, that means any of your militia stations. So any FDU station for the Gallente, any whatever state protector for the Caldari, etc. So the thing about that is if we look at stations, we can see this is where all of the Federal Defense Union stations are. Now, a lot of these are going to be in low sec. Like, for instance, I lived in Fleet for a long time. I still feel like I kind of do. And it has Fleet Defense Union logistics support. So it's really convenient to cash out your LP here. But remember, if you do that, if you do that, you can see Acti's a high-sec island. So you've got Hadales, Yavanye to Charmeront, or Hadales to Old Man Star to Valor. And you've got a couple other routes, but the point is that if you buy it in Fleet, you're going to have to, it's not safe, right? You could sell it here to other faction warfare people, but if you wanted to get it to one of the major markets, it might be inconvenient, right? So we can look at the fact that now a good one is there should be an LP store at each of the main headquarters, right? So if we go to Intaki, you can go here. And the nice thing is if you build yourself out of your headquarters anyways, you can always ship caster somewhere if you want to. So that makes so Intaki's a good cash out area. I used to say that, but you got to also be careful because, like, I don't know now that they've made Valor more secure, but it probably won't make a difference, honestly. Valor is really dangerous because it's adjacent to the war zone, so it's like the main entry point to the war zone for the Gallente, and because of that, the Caldari and the Amar, I guess just the Caldari, and I guess the Garistas maybe camp Valor a lot, because the problem is that if you're in the militia space and you look for a safe place to cash out, it'll tell you that Valor has a station in there, which is this one. But the problem is that it's camped so often that you'll probably get killed. So be careful about that. There is actually better options, but I'm not going to get too into the weeds about the Gallente specifically. My point is that thinking through where you cash out can be just as important as what you buy, okay? And then the last thing is what you're going to do with it, okay? You can either like you use the stuff or sell the stuff, right? If you use the stuff, then great, right? Like everybody could use Republic Fleet batteries. Everybody could use, like being able to just buy some Federation or some Navy issue versions of stuff, using Navy issue destroyers, using the Navy ships, the pirate ships, like all that kind of stuff. It's super slick. One of the things that I like about faction warfare, one of the reasons why you get more bang for your buck, in spite of the fact that it's hard to cash out LP sometimes, is the fact that it's like, well, shit, I just need to fly a bunch of destroyers. I now just fly a bunch of 18 million-isk destroyers or 80 million, 50 million ISK destroyers that I only spend like 4 million ISK each on. Now, granted, I use some LP, but I have a bottomless supply of LP. So I just now fly faction destroyers, no matter what, right? Most of the time. Asterisk, except for the Algos. So, because there's no Navy issue Algos. A man can dream. So if you're going to sell it, there's two big ways to sell things. Buybacks and selling it at the market yourself. The advantage to buybacks are that they're easy as hell. There's a basic, I think there's a high-sec buyback program still that just buybacks anything, or they've got their own rules. Just Google high-sec buyback. A lot of corps or alliances might have their own LP buyback programs, although that's very hard to coordinate sometimes. But whatever it is, like, if you can find a good buyback program, the only thing I recommend is don't try to be slick and overwhelm them with, 50 billion ISK worth of spur betas, because that makes them mad, and then you won't make your money, and then you'll just still have 50 billion ISK worth of spur betas that the buyback refuses to take from you. But also, getting things to market, moving a lot of expensive stuff, especially for new players that are most of their training is in combat ships anyways. There are several decent hauling programs. If your own organization doesn't have one, there's of course PushX, there's Red Frog, there's Beacon Boy Saves the Days group that I can't think of their name right now. There's plenty of decent hauling services that'll help you move things to stations, and you can just add that in as part of your calculations when it comes to your costs when you figure out what it is that you want to build, right? Or what it is that you want to buy. So you could literally just fly in to, you could actually, if you wanted to do it in Velour, even though it was dangerous, you could just go in a Corvette. So that way you don't care if you get killed, blank clone, no pod, all that stuff. Home station, back in your home station. So even if they pod you, that's better. That gets you home quicker. You dock up, you buy the stuff, and then you contract it through a hauling program to the trade hub that you want to send it to, which you want to be able to check all of the trade hubs, because especially when it comes to faction gear, there's a lot of fluctuation in prices because of supply. So, you might be, that's where you find the really good opportunities. You're not going to find the good opportunity always looking at JITA. Suddenly there's going to be a drought on Federation Navy plates in Amar. And if you supply that right away, then you're good to go. You can always use a transportation synesis if it's small enough. This transportation synesis will get through everything. Almost everything. Everything in high sec, if you do it right. This thing will not be stopped by Empire Police. It will not be stopped by players. It has a sub 2-second align time without the micro warp drive, and it carries almost 1790 meters cubed of space. It's got the 3 expanded cargo holds, an inertial stabilizer, low friction nozzle joint, and 2 small optimized cargo holds. And that's basically it. Everything else on this is just extra special stuff. Like literally you could just have that and it'd be fine. So, make sure to have one of these things. You can move everything to market really easily. Or like I said, you can just get a hauling service to do it. Why? Nobody else gets a Faction Warfare LP store in their main trade hub, do they? I don't think so. There's no state protectorate trade hub in G or station in JITA, is there? Heck is special in so many ways. Well, one less way now. But all right, so that's it for what to do and all that stuff. And that's really it. That's it. That's all you really need to know for now on how to get into faction warfare. It's a very deep system. There's a lot more to it, how the fights go out and all that stuff. But you don't need to know that stuff yet. Just grab yourself a cheap frigate or a cheap destroyer. One other thing that I forgot to note when I was talking about the sizes of plexes. The smallest plex for Empire faction sites are frigate with scouts, but the smallest site for pirates are destroyers. So while it behooves you to have a frigate in the normal faction warfare, if you're doing the insurgencies, you probably want to think of the destroyer as your kind of baseline ship and then go up from there. You can do frigates, but just realize that anywhere that you're doing anything, you could have brought a destroyer. So just remember that. So in conclusion, ads inserted. So in conclusion, like I said at the beginning, faction warfare, it is the best place to do PvP and get paid for it. It is the best place to find solo and small gang PvP. And it is the best place for new players to learn for new players to learn PvP in a comfortable but demanding environment. It provides more action on controllable timescales with plexes that have limited lengths of time for completion. And it provides incredible depth. One of the things I didn't go into is that at that larger scale, once you get deeper into it, you get bigger ships. There's capital ships, there's bashes, there's structures. There's so much more of that higher end stuff as well. Don't think it's just about frigates and destroyers, but that's just all you need to get started. And that's what this video is about. So I hope that you appreciate it. If you learned something new, or if you like these kinds of things, please hit like. If I forgot something that would be useful to newer players, please add it below in the comments, and I will highlight it and whatnot. I do appreciate all of the comments and all the videos and the likes and the sharing of these videos. I also like and support and thank every single one of you for making it all the way through. YouTube actually does their analytics based on how long you've watched the video. So if you are watching this right now, you're one of my heroes. Don't forget that in future videos. Wink. But and I also want to give special shout out to my top supporters: Abyssus, Aikawarazu Chan, Arkas Ilring, Belligerent Neckbeard, BlackRoseNoble, Dajat Lemmont, Drake, Federation Frontline, Ganai, J-Kun, Lumi, Midnight Space Monkey, Milk, Not Just Fun, Punchinello, Seeds Aplenty, Cernalin with No Eye, Sho'Danar, Syliana Vel'ash, Tgen Tgen, Nephilim, Grendel, V-Rod Cruiser, Yantey Lepouf, Zalnex, Zero, as well as my Immortal tier supporters 745 MPSI, Aerodanica the Queen, Eboleet, Erlidis, May, Malik Starfire, Mercuton, Nihilum, LM1, Sheesh, and Rid. Thank you guys so much. I do want to actually call out Ganai in particular. Ganai has been doing a great job. He's been working on some secret projects for me. Well, pseudo-secret projects I'm not willing to talk about quite yet on a stream. And I've been seeing incredible growth from an incredible dude that really cares about the organization and the other people, and just seems like a certifiable good dude. So thank you guys all for your time. I have been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys for coming. Like the stream if you did. Like the video if you liked it. Comment if you can. Tell me why you didn't like it if you didn't like it. But either way, subscribe to the channel so that way you can get my next video. And I've been Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and I'll see you in space. Okay. Cut. No, we're doing Algos now. We're doing Algos now. We're doing Algos now. Hold on. Okay. I just wanted to talk. I saw a YouTube. I saw a Reddit post the other day asking about people's favorite faction warfare ships, because it was a new bro that was looking for some things to get into. You know, he wants to get into faction warfare. He wants some good ideas for ships, right? Yeah. Quick outfit change. No. So the problem is that I only saw my favorite ship listed once, and it was in a list. There's a lot of good answers, but a lot of those good answers have been outdated. There's been a lot of rebalancing that has been going on, but I never saw my favorite, or I only saw my favorite ship once. And I feel like this is probably, I feel like the Algos is both pound for pound the strongest ship in the game, and or at least the most flexible, and also one of the most underrated ships in the game. All right, so what I want to show off is two versions of the Algos, two builds that I've made for the Algos that have very specific functions. These are just two examples of the way that the Algos can be built. There is what I call the Nephthys and the Anubis. All right. So the Nephthys, first and foremost, I want to actually talk a little bit about the Newt Tristan. This is the whole Newt Tristan. We should probably make more videos just about it. I want to make a whole video just about it, a lot more. But basically, this is a very, very strong starter PvP ship that relies on drones to do all of its damage. And it uses energy neutralizers to newt the opponent. It has a very strong hull tank with the damage control, which gives it a lot of raw hit points. And it has an ancillary to help claw back armor hit points throughout the course of the fight. It goes in for damage for the drones, and then it has a cap battery, so that way you can keep your newts running even as you newt out the opponent. A scram, of course, and an afterburner. So this ship is extremely successful. However, if the target is too fast for your drones, which it can still be, especially some of the fastest drones, kiters, then this ship has a lot of problems if people can get away from it. And also, like, pound for pound, obviously, if it's going toe-to-toe with something, it may not be able to out-DPS it, or it may not be able to drain it before it can be killed. So it has to rely on that drain happening because the drones themselves are not doing all that much damage. Enter the Anubis, or sorry, the Nephthys. This is what I call the Nephthys Algos. The Nephthys is more about control. I like to say that we took that whole Newt Tristan and we slapped 3 turrets on the side. This actually does 2 distinct things that are both really important. One, so as you can see, like, basically the tank is exactly the same. Triple bulkheads, damage control, ancillary armor repper. In fact, the lows and the mids are exactly the same, and the rigs are exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the addition of the 3 turrets. I'm pretty sure. I don't think I went with a different... Same type of mods. I don't know. Either way. So what this does is, of course, 3 extra blasters means more damage, right? So you're getting more damage. You could go with more newts, but you don't really have the power for it. So you're getting all of the newt pressure power of a newt Algos with extra... Yeah, all 4 of the Empire, all 4 of those destroyers were inspired by like real ships or, other naval concepts. And I one of the reasons why I like the Algos is just it looks so damn cool. So, it functionally is the same as the whole Newt Tristan. So it has the control of the whole Newt Tristan, but it has a little bit of extra damage. But there's something else that this thing packs that makes this thing so much better. Okay. What's funny is you'd think that the frigate would be better at fighting other frigates, but that's actually not true. If we look at the Algos' bonus, we can see that it has a 10%, it has a 50% bonus to drone hit points and damage. That's what's making your drones really, really cool. And it has a 50% bonus to small hybrid turret tracking speed, which makes both rail and blaster turrets pretty good. Like, I can pretty much, as long as I'm in optimal, I track everything. But even if I went with rails, which we can, that's one of the things about the flexibility of this platform is that you switch this thing to rails and suddenly it can fight from a long ways away. But neither of these, both of these builds are going to be blaster boats. But this one down here, 25% bonus to drone max velocity. So the principal loadout, the other thing actually that you get over the Tristan is you have a 35 megabyte per second bandwidth instead of a 25. Which means you actually end up with, instead of getting 5 light drones, it ends up with 2 medium drones and 3 light drones. That's its principal complement, right? 2 2 mediums, 3 lights. But then you get a secondary complement, right? And you got to make a decision. Do I want warriors or acolytes? Okay? So you go for these hammerheads and hobgoblins because Gallente drones do the most damage, right? But they're thermal, and your guns are thermal. So if they're tanked for thermal, you kind of run into a problem. So that's what these warriors come in. Warriors are the fastest drones in the game. But in an Algos, they're even faster. Check this out. This Algos travels at, this Warrior 2 travels at 2625 over from 2100. So 500 meters per second faster than a Warrior 1. Or, a Warrior 2 in any other ship. Now, what this means is that you're still not going to catch up to the fastest of fastest ships. But 2 things. One, it'll still catch up to a lot of the ships and more frequently in order to get their hits in. But more importantly, that enemy ship, like fast ships often have to maneuver. That's optimal. I'm stupid. I'm fucking... Wait. Yeah, I'm fucking stupid. Okay. Ah! All right. As you can see, it's maximum. I thought that was low. I was trying to sell it because like I was halfway through it and I was like, God, that seems low. 7,875 meters per second up from 5,000. Not a lot of shit is going faster than 7,000 meters per second. Now, it does have to break out of micro warp drive in order to shoot, so it doesn't get a lot of shots in. But yeah, it is the same bonus as the Dragoon. But I still like the Algos usually ekes out on the Dragoon by a little bit, but I do love the Dragoon. But every single time that faster drone, web drones are garbage. Every single time that faster ship tries to turn or maneuver, these warriors are going to take a bite out of them. I have fought several Dramiels, Daredevils, Condors, Garmers, and all of them, I couldn't kill them because obviously they're so fast, they're basically deciding whether or not they're in the fight. But you know what? I pushed them off the field and my Algos lived because my drones were so fast that while they couldn't, they could keep themselves alive, they couldn't do so while also killing me. So they would leave, right? And, you know, that's a kind of victory when the alternative is dying. So, yeah, this is why I love this Algos so much. But, you know, sometimes you're not expecting to fight players. Sometimes you're going to, yeah, goodbye to your cap if you're fighting a Dragoon, though. It is true that the Dragoon will have better range on the newts, which is a critical thing. Or, you know, the newts are very short-ranged. That is what it is, right? Hold on. Yeah, it's a bonus to to range, so they'll go further. But if I remember correctly, no. Well, it's got less high slots. That is one thing. But either way, but sometimes you don't. You just want to all in on damage, right? I built this next one for when, like, I'm going to go Plex in a system that I know is going to be quiet. It's only going to be me, or like I'm not going to have a fleet with me to support me, and I need to break every single rat available, right? That top tier rat has a pretty decent tank, like in the opens and larges and stuff. Now, again, these rats have like anemic damage, especially in the normal faction warfare sites. So I don't really care about my incoming damage, but I need to be able to break the threshold of damage to be able to kill these rats and kill them as fast as possible. Because anytime that they're alive, I'm not making progress in the site. So the faster I kill them, the faster I finish the site. Hence the Anubis Mark I. Now, if you can't fit it with the CPU, you can just turn off the energy Nosferatu. That's just there to help you stay a little bit alive in the event that you're being neuted. Or like the fight is going on for a long time for some reason. But one thing, you're in faction warfare or pirate insurgencies, like 3% implants are nothing to you. So just get a 3% CPU implant, throw it in, and then you can fly this thing just fine. But if you can look, this thing does 453 DPS with Void. So you have to go right up and up on something, but it does 450 DPS. Hey! And overheated, it'll do 490 DPS. Nope, it'll do 505 DPS if you set up your drones correctly. So it does over 500 DPS on a destroyer. Now, again, you lose that control. You do actually get a web now because you're not trying to nuke everybody out, so you're not having to worry about your cap with a cap injector. So instead, you get that web. So you do actually get some pretty good control that way, and you get the scram. So the nice thing about these two ships is that they fight really well together as well, right? Where the Nephthys is able to dismantle the opponent, and the Anubis is able to just rip it apart. So, and the really, really cool thing about this ship is, like, this is if you're up close, you can do this 500 DPS. But let's say you're not up close. Let's say they're far away. Even if you're not shooting, you're still doing 221 DPS. You're still doing great. So this is how flexible the Algos is. I have, on numerous occasions, actually, in a fight, like, I've been fighting an Algos, scrapping it up in there in the middle of things, and then I start taking some damage, or I start taking some, aggression of some kind, and I get pushed off the field, right? Well, I'll just break contact, warp off if I can, and then I won't scoop my drones, right? I just warp off to a nearby Celestial. And then I warp back at 50. And then right-click on my capacitor and reconnect to lost drones. And immediately begin locking the opponents and sicking the drones on them. So I fight close until things are dangerous, or, like, I get pushed off, but then I return and continue to fight from a distance, knowing that if anything comes up to get me, I still have my blasters and whatnot to defend myself. So that is one of the things that makes the Algos incredibly powerful as far as these ships, because it's still got that nimble agility and enough, like, staying power to be able to escape, come back, and continue in the fight and contribute to your friends if it's a fleet fight or whatever. So yeah, just two examples of my favorite Algos. These are going to be both available on Workbench with links down below. I should have put them on this morning. I'll do it afterwards. And they're, of course, available on contract to the invited and whatnot. But these are just some good examples of some ships that, are outside of the classic normal things that people would expect, but a lot of people find very useful. One of the great things about these ships is that because they're drones, like, it is a bit fiddly, remembering not to leave your drones behind, remembering not to drop your drone, or remembering to drop your drones, etc., etc. But if you do, then one of the nice things about it is that, like, you can land, and then you can drop your drones as your very first thing, and then burn off or whatever. And as soon as the enemy starts attacking you, like, expect the opponent to have a really fast lock time, right? You may or may not be able to lock them fast, depending on what they are, but they're probably going to be able to lock you because they want to catch you. So they're going to catch you and try to do something to you, and that triggers your drones to respond, even before you even lock them. So another good example, like, this is another good counter for, like, Griffin Navy issues, right? Their drones will jam you, but it doesn't matter because your drones are going to still be ripping them apart. So It's got a lot of flexibility. Oh, I mentioned earlier, one last thing. I mentioned earlier that you could go with Valkyries for the speed, but the other choice you can go for is not Valkyries, Warriors. You can go for Warriors for the speed, but the other choice is Acolytes. The reason why you'd want to go with Acolytes is because Acolytes do EM damage. So if your opponent is like Kaldari, right, then chances are their shields have weakened EM resistance. Kaldari ships have a natural 0% EM hole, even in their Tech 2 ships. So that if they don't fill that hole, they take so much damage from EM. So the more, and more importantly, the more that a player puts into like their other tank pieces or other defense, like obviously the more modules that are committed to other things, the less they have for resistance. So, you know, these tweaked out, ships that are really powerfully resisted to, say, thermal kinetic, right? Because they're used to fighting Gallente ships. Well, if you throw out those EM drones and stick them on them, you'll find yourself doing like 3 times as much damage, right? So there's some little pro tips. My favorite ship. Hope you liked it. But whether or not you did, go ahead and let me know down below. What's your favorite ship to fly around and why? Which one should I check? And what ship should I check out next for like a breakdown of a couple of my favorite fits for? I'm using, yes, transverse bulkheads. The reason why I use transverse bulkheads instead of armor is because armor slows you down. While transverse bulkheads get full support from the damage control. One mod gives me 60% hull resist across the board. And these hit points don't slow me down. But yeah. Anything I missed, comment below. Anything you want me to do or check out next, comment below. If you liked it, like the stream. If you didn't, let me know what I did wrong. But either way, thank you to each of you for making it this far, and to my top tier supporters: Abyssus, Aikawarazu Chan, Arkas Ilring, Belligerent Neckbeard, BlackRoseNoble, Dajat Lemmont, Drake, Federation Frontline, Ganai, J. Kuhn, Lumi, Midnight Space Monkey, Milk, Not Just Fun, Punchinello, Seeds of Plenty, Serenolin with No Eyes, Sho'Danar, Syliana Vel'ash, Tgen Tgen, Nephilim, Grendel, V-Rod Cruiser, Yantey Lepouf, Zolnex, Zero, and my immortal tier supporters of 745 MPSI are Danica the Queen, Eboleet, Erlidis, May, Malik Starfire, Mercuton, Neelam, LM1, Sheesh, and Rid. And of course, let me go and thank the people from the stream. Hold on. I have that. Oh, fuck. I forgot the Federation. I forgot the Frontlines page website for faction warfare and Aderon.org. Whatever. Let me go look at stuff. Yep, extra. Thank you to Sheesh and V-Rod. Isn't there one other? I thought there was something else. Okay, well, you guys are awesome. Just to make a video short, like I said, an addendum. That's fine. Never considered the Algos. Well, maybe you should. It's so good. It's like, so I'll put it this way. I had a fleet of like 12 Algoses. Oh man. I'm not going to be able to find this video off the top of my head, or, off the top, but if you guys remind me, maybe I'll show it another day. But there's an old recording that my buddy made of us in like 8 or 12 Algoses, and we kill like 12 billion ISK worth of hacks coming into our Plex. Just because the Algoses, especially as a fleet, get so like deceptively dangerous. One of the really great things about one of the great things about Algos and all drone boats is that, like, especially Gallente drone boats, those blasters plus drones just bring an unreasonable amount of damage for their size. You should make more breakdown, maybe with some fight footage. Yeah, I do have my old thing, like the why logistics is awesome. I really want to make more of that. I have old stuff from the old faction warfare days. I want to do stuff with the insurgencies, but it seems like any day that there's a big, like the main days for insurgencies are days that I can't stream for one reason or another. So hopefully next week, but although next week we will also have the winter expansion stuff, or winter, sorry, event. Either way, I digress. I've been Astrothi. I've been the voice of New Eden. Until next time, thank you all. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in space. All right. Yeah, no. So next week we're going to go into winter event. I want to try to get some live fire running around in an insurgency, and I really want to show you guys Phasmophobia. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, let's see. Anything else we wanted to cover before Friday? It's the end of the weekend. There is a drifter fleet tonight or this weekend, and there's also we're going to start doing convocation meetings on the first Sunday of every month. There's more information in the Discord. If you aren't in the Discord, you probably should be. At the very least, you should go to the Roles channel and give yourself the role for YouTube in order to get the notifications of when I go live or post other videos, or other content creators do too. Vanguard is next week. That's true too. Vanguard starts on the 7th. Wow, such ending. Very, very. Danny, do you even know what this is? This is an old thing. I had a supporter that anytime I do like the false endings in my stream, he would like think it was the real one, and so then I'd be like, no, after. So we decided to make a sign to let people know that it's the fake ending. So as soon as I give the salute, I do the little fish thing to indicate that we're going to keep going. I am so looking forward to Vanguard, guys. So much Vanguard. I am way out of practice when it comes to shooters, honestly. You know, I kind of cheated when I was really big into Overwatch by being into Mercy. We'll see how that works when it comes to the balance of Vanguard. But, you know, hopefully I'll get there. As long as it's really tactical and there's other really cool stuff to do. But you got the invite email? None for me yet? What, for Vanguard? Everybody who has an Omega account gets into Vanguard automatically. Incorporate Valkyrie into it eventually? Wow. That's, I mean... Yes. Why not? You can rely on the professional PlanetSide players in your alliance to carry you. Just get me and Ty into a team. Yeah, you know, I look forward to looking over the battlefield and going, "Good job, men! Take that hill." Yeah, Awakening. Yeah. That's a different one. All right. They did. So here's the thing about Valkyrie, Juxta. Here's the thing that always bothered me about Valkyrie. Did you know that they made it so that Valkyrie could be done on VR, not on VR? Hold on a second. Let me go look it up. What's it called? Hold on. There's so little information about this game. It was the War something update. What was it called? Was it just Warzone? Can't remember. I think it was Warzone. Yeah, no, well, it was always PC. But as of Warzone, which was in 2017, they made it so that Valkyrie didn't need VR, and then didn't tell anyone except for the people that happened to be at EVE Vegas in 2016 when they announced that they were going to. I'm not joking, by the way. Like, it was there, or no, it was the people in Vegas in 2017, I think it was. But like, yeah, every single time I talk about Valkyrie, most people have no idea that Valkyrie did not require a VR to play. They even added this thing that, like, there's an eye tracking tool that you can get that made it so you could get all of the advantages of being in VR and the head, being able to aim your missiles by where you're looking thing. You could get that in the normal flat screen version too. But they literally didn't tell it. Like, I went the day of that, like, launch, and I went to Steam, and it wasn't even on the carousel. It wasn't, if you type in Valkyrie, it goes to Valkyrie Chronicles. Like, it was hidden. Most EVE players didn't even know that it was available now. So yeah, I hold a grudge about Valkyrie, but yeah. Either way, yeah, I think that should about cover it. Yeah, I didn't know about it until after they canceled it. I know, right? Ugh. I have some videos where I showed it off before it went down. Any rate, I've been Ashtarothi. We'll do it for real this time. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even the context for you, my fellow Empyreans. I've already read the list twice. I hope that's okay for everybody. Thank you guys for coming. I will see you next week. Almost certain. You know what I'm very happy about? I'm very happy that yesterday I said I was going to do this today, and then I actually got to do it. That feels good. I'm going to celebrate by playing some Phasmophobia. I'm an Ashtarothi. Until next time, I'll see you in space. Wait, why are you sad, Malik? What'd I do?
Bring on the wrecking machine.
Yes, the ghost game. Are you there? Where are you? Are you pizza?
Every city you burn, I'm gonna build high. Bring on the wrecking machine, setting your dreams of heaven on fire. Bring on the wrecking machine. Bring on the wrecking machine. Bring on the wrecking machine. Gonna ignite your every desire. Bring on the wrecking machine. For every city you burn, let it burn, let it burn, let it burn. For every city